Welcome back to Leadership Devotionals. We are still in the series, The Making of a Leader 4. In the previous episodes, we had some leaders are just simply born with it. Others were shaped by their early experiences as a child. Some were shaped with the failures that they have experienced in their life. And now, for today, we will be talking about when crisis and personal struggles shape leaders. You know, events beyond a person's control can produce the same effect as failure. You know, they are the crucible experiences of life. They can either crush an aspiring leader or develop the character. I call that the strength of character, and resolve within emerging leaders that enables them to reach greater heights in the future. Now, I'll be telling you some examples about some presidents, little stories about presidents in the United States. The first one, of course, here we have is Teddy Roosevelt. He is the 26th president of the United States, and when he was a child, he endured severe asthma as a child and was considered too frail and sickly even to attend school. As a young man, he lost both his beloved mother, Mitty, to typhoid fever, and his loving wife, Alice, to childbirth on that same day. It was February. On that same day, he lost his loved one, both his mother and his wife. This left the future president so stunned and disoriented that he wrote, "The light has gone out of my life." Another Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, the 32nd U.S. president, considered one of America's most successful 20th century president, imagine, contracted polio as an adult and has left him in a wheelchair for life. It has been said Franklin was able to transform his humiliations, however, to triumphs. He allegedly quipped, "You know, if you have spent 6 months on your back trying to move your toe, nothing else could be difficult anymore." In surveys of historians judging American presidents, based on 10 leadership qualities, the top 5 have been consistently: first, Abraham Lincoln, followed by Franklin Roosevelt, George Washington, Theodore Roosevelt, and Harry Truman. All of these presidents, like Abraham Lincoln, I have told you stories about him in our previous episodes about failure. It's just like same as crisis, and Abraham Lincoln has, experienced defeat after defeat after defeat after defeat, failure after failure, crisis after crisis when he was running for office. George Washington also lost 5 out of his 7 major battles when he started his career in the service. But this crisis, these personal struggles have even placed them among the top 5 presidents of the United States. Mahatma Gandhi was imprisoned numerous times and survived several attempts on his life before he was finally assassinated. Martin Luther King Jr., an ardent admirer of Gandhi, had multiple threats against his life and was frequently imprisoned. But you know what? Wise leaders do not become discouraged by crisis. Okay? Remember that. Wise leaders do not become discouraged by crisis, but rather they build on this crisis. They build on them knowing these experiences are likely to become catalysts for their personal growth. Oh, this is so beautiful. A lot of people will, bog down on crisis. A lot of people will bend or even fall under the pressure of crisis. But when you subject a leader to crisis, this is the time when they beef up, look at crisis in the eye, and deal with it squarely and frontally. Let me share with you a story of my father. My father is a pastor, and he became one of the leaders in our church, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. When he was a boy, at an early age of 5 years old, World War II broke out, and he became an orphan. The Japanese killed both of his parents while his father was lying in his bed because he was sick of malaria. And because he was shivering, he was covered with a jacket. And when the Japanese saw my grandfather, they thought he was in the military, so they killed him. And my mother hugged my grandmother hugged my grandfather, and they were both killed there in their bed. My father hid on an artesian well for quite a number of days, after which, when the Japanese left, came out of the well, and he was an orphan. As a small boy, he even has to, climb coconut trees to get coconut fruits in order to sell to the market so that he can buy paper and, something, a paper pad to use in class. One time he was so hungry, he was staying with his relatives. He was so hungry that when he was up there in the coconut tree, he fainted out and fell. He even showed me his scar here on his head. But it did not, these challenges did not deter the determination of my father to pursue school so that someday he will get out of the dire situation that he's in. When he finally graduated in high school, he went to become a working student in a school in Mindanao. He would work for 1 semester, then the earnings that he have gathered and he has saved will be the ones that he's going to pay for his tuition the following semester. That's why he finished a 4-year course in theology. It's just supposed to be 4 years if he is a full-time student, but he finished this course in 9 years. 9 years. Sometimes he would go to bed hungry, but that's the life of a working student. There was even one time when he works in the sawmill and in the carpentry shop. One time he went to court with what would be later on be my mother. He went to court my mother, and since he has no money, there are a lot of suitors for my mom, and my father, among the suitors, my father is the poorest of them all. And he has no money. So, these guys, when they walk, something, cling clang on their pockets, because that's the coin, that's their money. So the louder, your coin things in your pocket, it seems like you're somebody with money. But since my father has no money, he was working in the sawmill, in the carpentry shop, and so he placed, nails in his pocket, just so there's some kind of sound when he walks. But by and large, the hardship, the crisis in his life, the personal struggle that he has underwent has shaped his character. It was a strength of character that developed in him, so much so that when he became later on a leader in the church, a president first of a territory, then eventually his territory was the leadership qualities that he exhibited was seen by the constituents, and he was elected to have a bigger territory, this time the whole of Visayas, I would see there are problems that will come to him. There will be, crisis in leadership. I can just see how come he meets this crisis, because he has underwent such kind of experiences before. Just like, what Franklin Roosevelt said, if you have spent 6 months on your back trying to move your little toe, nothing seems difficult anymore. The same is the case of, Joseph in Genesis. Joseph in Genesis was, grew up in a cultured, in a protected environment. He was the beloved of his father Jacob. He was the favorite son. But his brothers envied him, and so he was sold as a slave to Egypt. And you know what? In those days, slaves are just valued as if it's just another commodity. They are bought from the market, and the owners own these slaves. And if the owners doesn't like these slaves, they can just kill their slaves anytime or sell back to the market their slaves. Just imagine to be a slave in a foreign land. It was a devastating experience for Joseph. And to top it all, it is not as if slavery is not enough. He was thrown to prison on false charges. And when he was already in prison, he made friends with those in prison. And those friends of him forgot him in prison. But we know that God has a plan for him. God was preparing Joseph, so much so that those crises and personal struggles that he underwent made him to be the second in command ruler of Egypt. Next to Pharaoh, he was the prime minister of Egypt. And the past experiences that he underwent were sterling, made sterling character traits in his life. I bring to you a text in Malachi, chapter 3, verse 2 to 3. I read it in the New International Version. It says, "For he will be like a refiner's fire or a launderer's soap. He will sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver, and he will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. Then the Lord will have men who will bring offerings in righteousness." God will be like a refiner's fire. He will refine you like gold and silver, and when he does that, he will bring out, then the Lord will have men who will be upright and righteous. How is this? How does this happen? Precious metals are refined using fire. Materials like gold and silver, in heat, they just melt, but they don't burn. At temperatures where other metals or materials will simply burst into flames. Heating makes these metals, destroys impurities, and after the very hot environment that they're in, eventually what will come out are pure gold and pure silver. Fellow leaders, crises may happen in our lives. Personal struggles may happen in our lives. But remember this, God may just be in the process of refining you to be something better someday. God may just be in the process of refining your character so that you will come out a lot more precious, a lot more valuable, and a lot more effective in His service. God bless you today is my prayer for you.